promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 p.m. Port Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The Nigerian Senate launches probe into $20 billion central bank advances during Buhari's administration.
To the members of this esteemed committee, I implore you to approach your responsibilities with the utmost sense of patriotism, professionalism, and integrity. Your scrutiny or investigation demands impartiality and fairness.
Gambian Parliament initiates deliberations on a criminal offense bill to strengthen legal framework, and the Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara meets with new PDCI leader to discuss funeral arrangement for late President Biedi. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Gambia, Ghana and Liberia. Our top stories on this edition of the broadcast are all on parliamentary committees and their actions to probe alleged financial misappropriation. The first takes us to Nigeria, where the Senate on Monday inaugurated an ad hoc committee to investigate the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari over the $20 billion Ways and Means advances from the central bank. The sum was approved by the 9th National Assembly. WADR's Usman Omar in Abuja reports that President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, asserts that unraveling the mystery behind advances remains key in understanding the country's present predicament.
In February, the Senate decided to investigate the loans obtained during both terms of President Muhammadu Buhari. Ways and Means serves as a loan facility where the Central Bank of Nigeria provides short-term financing to address government budget shortfalls. The cumulative value of these loans reached 30 trillion naira, that is $18.4 billion by the end of Buhari's tenure, with the last approval being 22.7 trillion naira, that is about $13.9 billion in December 2022. Senator Akpabio urged the committee to welcome constructive input, emphasizing that the committee's success relies on collaboration, cooperation, and a dedicated commitment to the common good.
To the members of this esteemed committee, I implore you to approach your responsibilities with the utmost sense of patriotism, professionalism, and integrity. Your scrutiny or investigation demands impartiality and fairness, always keeping the public interest and the welfare of our nation at the forefront. You must leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of the truth. The success of this ad hoc committee hinges on collaboration. It also hinges on cooperation and a steadfast commitment to the common good.
In response, Senator Issa Jibrin, the chairman of the 17-member committee, assured that the investigation would be conducted meticulously and brought to a logical conclusion.
The Ways and Means and the anti-borrowing schemes have aroused various forms of discussions amongst individuals and groups, with groups and individuals giving their opinions and interpretations. Your Excellency, the implication of this is that Nigerians are waiting for the result of this investigation. I want to assure you that we are going to carry out this assignment expeditiously, but without any form of compromise.
The ad hoc committee has been granted a 6-week time frame to scrutinize 30 trillion naira or $18.4 billion in Ways and Means advances and 10 trillion naira, that is about $6.1 billion allocated to the Anchor Borrowers Program and other interventions. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
In a related development, the minority in Ghana's parliament has accused the Bank of Ghana management of engaging in illicit activities related to the write of approximately 48 billion Ghana cedis in government debt. The caucus contends that these actions have led to the central bank's insolvency. The minority leader, Dr. Kassel Ato-Forsen, emphasized the urgent need for accountability from the bank's management. WADR's Narede Tete in Accra completes the story.
During the concluding debate on the State of the Nation address on Monday, Dr. Kassel Ato-Forsen underscored that the Bank of Ghana is facing financial challenges with losses exceeding 60.8 billion Ghana cedis, approximately over $4 million, and negative equity surpassing 55 billion cedis, which amounts to $4,280 in 2022. He accused the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, and his deputies of unauthorized money printing to finance government expenditure and writing off 48.4 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to $3 million, of government debt without parliamentary approval.
Mr. Speaker, in the year 2022, the central bank recorded a colossal loss of about 60.8 billion Ghana cedis and a negative equity of 55 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, two deputies, illegally and excessively printed money to finance government over bloated expenditure.
The minority stressed the seriousness of these actions and called for accountability from the Bank of Ghana's leadership, insisting that the governor and his deputies should be held accountable for their actions, regardless of the time it takes.
The governor of the Bank of Ghana and his two deputies, without recourse to this House, wrote off about 48.4 billion Ghana cedis of government debt. Mr. Speaker, that singular act is illegal. This, for me, is a cardinal sin. Monetary sin. It's a sin against basic economics. It's a sin against the laws of this country, and which this governor and his two deputies must be held accountable, however long it takes.
For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
We head to the Gambia, where the parliament deliberations commenced on the criminal offence bill, legislative proposal aimed at enhancing the country's legal framework. The bill seeks to address various criminal activities and ensure the protection of citizens' rights. Sankle Janko Banjul reports.
The Gambia Parliament has initiated discussions on the proposed criminal offence bill during the consideration stage on Monday. This legislative measure aims to address a spectrum of criminal activities within the country, encompassing a broad range of offences. During this period, lawmakers are anticipated to engage in thorough deliberations, closely examining the bill's provisions and its potential impact on Gambian society. Fabakary Tombonjata is the Speaker of the National Assembly of the Gambia.
Members shall have the opportunity to give detailed consideration and scrutiny to every clause and schedule in the bill. This stage also provides the first opportunity for amendments to the bill to be debated and voted on.
As the discussions unfold, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dauda Jallow, who introduced the bill, endeavors to clarify a clause related to toxic substances.
When somebody makes you intoxicated without your intention, whichever way it happened. But the most common way, you put something in somebody's either drink or something, so he did not get himself intoxicated, but through an intervention of a third party. If that is established in a proceeding, that is discharge.
The proposed criminal offence bill, the first comprehensive review since 1933, aims to modernize criminal justice legislation. It seeks to remove provisions against freedom of speech and expand Gambian courts' jurisdiction to handle offences committed abroad by individuals entering the country, avoiding the extradition for foreign trials. For News Link and West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankula Janka reporting from Banjul.
This is the countdown to the Senegal Decides 2024.
Countdown to Senegal's March 2024 polls will bring you a quick update on the current political situation in the country in relation to the electoral campaign, special reports, expert analysis on electoral issues, and profile of the 19 candidates in the race for the top job. In beginning with profiles, Augustine Coley tells us more about Anta Babakar Ngom, the youngest and only female presidential candidate in this year's election. Ngom is an entrepreneur and founder of the Alternative for a New Generation of Citizens ARC movement.
Anta Babakar Ngom, 36, is the only female and youngest presidential candidate in the March 24 polls. The alluring entrepreneur and founder Alternative for a New Generation of Citizens ARC movement says she embodies the break with the past. Prideful of her experience, Ngom speaks without hesitation in drawing on what she does best, entrepreneurship, to help her appeal and rally support for her project.
Today, I'm not only the youngest, but the only female candidate for this presidential election. The entry of a woman and young women into the Senegalese political landscape represents a decisive turning point and a strong symbol of change. Now, this embodies a break with the traditional pattern that we have known so far to new perspectives and new ways of conceiving politics and leadership. And that is what we embody. I am a candidate for election with a movement, my movement called the Alternative for Citizen Relief. So, the question of generational relief and the relief of the political scene is what we embody.
A graduate in economics and communications, until recently she was at the head of a family business that made a name for itself in the pottery industry in Senegal. Motivated by this experience, she is asserting her uniqueness in this race through a company project that aims to be innovative.
I am committed to working tirelessly to promote a responsible, transparent, and inclusive governance that finally places the priorities of Senegalese people at the heart of all decisions. Issues related to agriculture, farming, fishing, the appreciation of natural resources, craftsmanship, access to care, the promotion of the school level, the professional training, and every opportunity will be seized to give back to our country. I am an industry captain, so industrialization is at the heart of my program for my country.
Within Anta Babaka Ngom's campaign team, she is described as a demanding captain of industry focused on quality in everything she does. Over the past few months, Anta Babaka Ngom, daughter of the well-known Senegalese entrepreneur Babakar Ngom, has been traveling the country meeting with electorates. Like other candidates, the question is, was she able to convince them? Only March 24 has the answer, when some 7 million voters will decide who rules the country.
Up next is one of the foremost leaders of the opposition for more than 2 decades, Déthié Fall. Taufik Abdel Nasser is here with more on the times and life for Fall, a member of the opposition main coalition, Yewi Askanwi.
Déthié Fall is one of the leading figures in the main opposition coalition, Yewi Askanwi, of which he has been the national representative since 2021. One of his latest feats is to succeed alongside other opponents in winning a large number of seats in the National Assembly.
Nous avons travaillé sérieusement avec la coalition aussi à travers le programme que nous avons élaboré.
We have worked seriously and with the coalition as well through the program we have developed, which is called Senegal, Good to Live and Good to Have, to provide precise answers to these different concerns. We have worked on agriculture, but especially on industrialization to ensure a sustainable growth in our country. We have worked on education, health, and have also worked on infrastructure to regulate territorial inequality and ensure that wherever Senegalese people are, they can have decent living conditions.
The Polytechnic engineer specializing in the management of complex and strategic projects claims to have solutions to the problems of the Senegalese people.
20 ans que j'ai eu à faire dans l'opposition avec vous.
I have been in the opposition for 20 years with you, by your side, in the cities, villages, and the most remote areas of the country. These different joinings have naturally allowed me to live with you during the different difficulties, but to note the strong deficiency of the national fabric, both from an economic and social point of view.
Déthié Fall has had a long association with another presidential candidate, Idrissa Seck. Within Roni, the party of the former Prime Minister, Déthié Fall rose through the ranks before breaking away in 2021 to head the Republican Party for Progress. For this presidential election, Fall is counting on the opposition to unite in the event of a second round.
The strategy of the opposition is to have a vote by vote, because in the first round, everyone will receive the full support of the voices of the supporters and the activists. This will prevent a vote by vote that can result in someone else voting who has no choice.
A titanic mission for the opposition in the face of the camp in power, which claims to be able to win the election in the first round.
Meanwhile, Senegal's National Commission for the Census of Votes, CNRV, headed by the President of the Court of Appeal, says the provisional results from the first round of the ballot will be announced not later than April 1, 2024. This declaration by the Commission indicates that despite all the difficulties occasioned by election postponement, the electoral process is in shape since the calendar has been shared with stakeholders. Imo Edet completes the story.
The National Commission for the Census of Votes is certain of announcing the provisional results of the first round of the presidential election at most by April 1, 2024. Within 5 clear days following the filing of the complaint on these results, the Constitutional Council, the main arbiter of the vote, will rule before proclaiming the final results of the vote. This is yet another major step that indicates the readiness of Senegal's political structure in holding of the delayed presidential election on March 24. Recall electoral campaign commenced last Saturday with the 19 approved candidates drumming for support from the electorate, a period that has been cut short to approximately 2 weeks because of the February 25 postponement. Looking at Senegal's election timeline, the 2024 election marks the first with the highest number of contenders and remains the fiercely contested poll with big names from the opposition camp such as Bashir Diomaye Faye, supported by incarcerated opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, as well as Amadou Ba, former Prime Minister and presidential candidates for the ruling coalition. For its part, the state, through Prime Minister Sidiki Kaba, who formed his government on Friday after the dissolution of the previous cabinet, promises an inclusive vote in such a short time.
Imo Edet with that report, and just before the break, let's turn our attention to Côte d'Ivoire. President Alassane Ouattara yesterday Monday welcomed Tidjane Cham, the new president of the Côte d'Ivoire Democratic Party (PDCI), at the presidential palace. On the agenda for discussion was the date of the funeral of late President Henri Konan Bédié, who died late August. Other issues such as move towards national unity and cohesion were also discussed between the two personalities. Cham, a professional banker, upon assuming leadership of the PDCI, declared his intention to run for presidency in Côte d'Ivoire's 2025 presidential polls. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The Nigerian Senate launches probe into $20 billion central bank advances during Buhari's administration. Gambian Parliament initiates deliberations on criminal offense bill to strengthen legal framework. Ivorian President Ouattara meets with new PDCI leader to discuss funeral arrangements for late President Bédié. Ahead in the news, we have the press review, guest interview, and a sports update. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Remember, we stream live on WADR.org and on Facebook and YouTube at WADR. The Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia is calling for the dissolution of the recently constituted Assets Recovery Team by President Joseph Boakai. The Liberian leader recently issued an executive order establishing the Asset Recovery Team with a mandate to spearhead efforts to identify, trace, and retrieve assets that have been illegally acquired or converted to private use by officials of the government. And in Burkina Faso, 15th of May each year will henceforth be dedicated to customs and traditions. The decision was taken by the government in the Council of Ministers. According to the transitional authorities, this decision aims to reaffirm the secular nature of the state and allow traditional religion to regain its place in society, a decision welcomed by the population.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
On today's press review, WADR's Darlington Pope and Monrovia joins us with major and banner headlines on the front pages of the national dailies.
For today's edition of Press Review, we begin with the Daily Observer newspaper. Center wants Asset Recovery Task Force dissolved, says the task force usurps LACC's mandate. Supreme Court posts EPA's operations on hold. On the back page of the Daily Observer newspaper, Maritime Commissioner Designate unveils plans to boost coastal inland transportation. We cross over now to the newspaper. Assets Recovery Team usurps LACC's mandate. Center boss discloses. Bouaka calls on Muslims to pray for peace. On the back page of the newspaper, medical students face difficulties. Steve Zago takes over LRS. That's the Liberia Immigration Service. LPRC sends message to Muslims. Our next and final stop for today's edition is the Heritage newspaper. We want our judiciary to be respected, says President Joseph Yuma Bouaka. Freeport, several under investigation for stolen rights. On the back page of the Heritage newspaper, BA Money Company expresses confidence in Aden's administration. Maigibi health officials, others indicted on several crimes. LACC boss discloses. On April 14, 2022, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission lifted a story from the front page Africa News Outlet captioned, US 1.1 million of donor funds wasted, mismanaged by the Ministry of Health. According to the news outlet, the Liberia Coordinating Mechanism at the Ministry of Health acknowledged the investigation report published on April 8, 2022 by the Office of the Inspector General. The report released by the OIG highlights systematic fraud in misappropriation by the Ministry of Health, a principal recipient of the Global Fund grants, and recommends that robust action be taken by the government of Liberia. Consequently, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission immediately utilized the opportunity to investigate those implicated into the web. We will leave it right there. That is how I would love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. Thank you so much and bye-bye.
Indeed, many thanks, Darlington Popper.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Professor Gorgui Dieng, a Senegalese political analyst, is our guest this afternoon. He remarks about the transition as President Macky Sall's term in office expires on April 2nd, days after the first round of the elections.
The Constitutional Council has already issued a decision in which they state that the process, if it is not over before the end of the mandate of the President on April the 2nd, the Speaker of Parliament would take over from the President. This is the decision made by the Constitutional Council.
I recall that there are a few of the opposition figures or leaders that oppose this suggestion by the Constitutional Council.
Well, the Constitutional Council has been making mistakes, to tell the truth, since they issued the first list of the nominees. And it is stated that in the Constitution, in the electoral law, that decisions made by the Constitutional Council mustn't be revised, mustn't be challenged. And they themselves challenged their own decision and issued a second list of nominees, was not 20 but 19 candidates. That's the first or second violation of the law. Well, but as their decisions cannot be challenged and they are considered to be final, I think that even if there are some people who are against that decision, that is what will happen. There are some political party leaders, there are some leaders, not from the civil society organization, but from the society at large, who are against this because they believe that the president is in a better position to continue, but it is the Constitutional Council who will have the last word.
This is the first time ever in Senegal's political or democratic history that a sitting president at the expiration of his tenure is handing over to President of the National Assembly to allow for a smooth transition. But how smooth will this be?
The reason why I only insist on the interest of the state, insisting on the stability of the country. If you simply lay the emphasis on the interest of the country and on the stability of the country, I think that the best option would have been on on the part of the Constitutional Council to simply ask the president to continue for 10, 15 days. As they are considered to be the last resort, their decisions are always to be respected. And I believe that this transition will not be smooth because the Speaker of Parliament, I don't believe that he would be doing anything because he is not ready for that. And the period of time is too short. I don't really see the necessity for the Constitutional Council to ask the Speaker of Parliament to continue.
So what must stakeholders do to ensure that the transition is smooth, devoid of any trouble, opposition, and confusion or certainties?
This is a trigger question I cannot answer because all that depends on the political stakeholders. But I believe that Senegal is mature enough to be able to overcome this situation. But we've got really to rely on the common sense of the political parties, leaders, the common sense of the Constitutional Council, and all the other stakeholders who have got really to place the interests of Senegal above their own interests. A smooth transition may happen, but we may have also difficulties. As the wall of saying goes, Lichi kanam rawut ay gët. That means that what is ahead of us cannot escape our eyes. In English, wait and see.
Professor Gruge Jiang is a political analyst. And in the world of sports, let's join Sankule Janko for updates.
Hello out there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Reigning African Games men's beach volleyball Gambia crashed out of the 13th edition of All African Games after a defeat by Sierra Leone on Monday. The Gambia went into the tournament as heavy favorites but failed to live up to expectations. The tiny West African side were beaten by Sierra Leone 21-16 in the first set before losing 22-20 in the second set. Their crashing out was confirmed after another defeat by Kenya. In football, Senegal were beaten by informed Uganda 1-0 in the men's football event of the All-African Games on Monday. Uganda continued their impressive form, collecting the maximum points again at the sports ground of the University of Ghana. Alan Ewart scored the only goal of the match in the 28th minute of play. The results earned Uganda qualification in the next round, leading Group B with 6 points. Meanwhile, Nigeria bounced back from their opening defeat to Uganda to record a slim 1-0 victory over South Sudan on Monday. Sadiq Isiaka scored from the spot kick to earn Nigeria another 1-0 win to enhance their chances of qualification to the next round of the All-African Games. Elsewhere, the Nigeria under-20 female football team defeated the Teranga Lionesses of Senegal to secure qualification into the semi-finals of the 13th African Games in Ghana. The Super Falconets began their campaign with a win against Morocco before defeating Senegal at the Cape Coast Stadium on Monday night. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's how we end this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Krista Mukidi and Maudio Juve for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, now WADR English Service. Remember, we also stream live on WADR.org. I am Abdullah Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening.